Good morning. Today is Saturday. It is the 13th of December, and we are continuing our mapping project of the Tribog area today. I intend, weather permitting, to get into an area that kind of ties the whole thing together, and then we might move to a new area in the overall region to continue our efforts tying this one up. We'll see if the weather permitting, as we're getting snow later, and they said later tonight, but it's looking like maybe later this afternoon. We'll see what happens. But that being what it is, adds a little more spice to the day. As you can see, we have a little bit more snow, and we'll see if that brings new tracks and all that. Also, some sad news to share once we get on the move. But for now, let's get moving. We'll see what we find, and tracking and mapping are the predominant part of the day. But if something rears its head, because again, we do potentially have the right mix for activity in this neck of the woods this year, so we're keeping an eye and an ear out for that as well. Let's find out what we find, and we'll get moving. Thanks. We're back. This is still kind of a shock. I only found this out last night. I don't know what day this happened, but as we come to the end of the year, the Bigfoot community is confronted with the loss of one Steven Strufert, who is, if you didn't know, he ran Bigfoot books for basically forever, operating out of Willow Creek, California. And this is a person who I've interacted with over the years, and sometimes friendly, sometimes just not. My feelings on him as a living person are what they are, but unfortunately, and if you saw recent photos of him, he clearly was dealing with some health issues. And in the interest of human decency, my deepest condolences for his friends and family in his loss. And Steven, you were definitely one of the more interesting characters in the community, and I do hope, one, you found peace wherever you are, and that you're in a better place. Your last few years were not, with the fire that you had at the bookstore, dealing with COVID, owning a bookstore couldn't have been easy. But then the fire, I will relate to that because my better half in 2019 lost 30 years of her life to a house fire. And I have literally been born witness to what happens in the aftermath of that. And it is really, in all honesty, a life-altering event in every sense of the word. So my condolences for that, regardless of how it happened. You will be missed. And all I can really do to sum up what my thoughts on this is the community will not be the same without you, and I do honestly hope that you are at peace in a better place. My condolences to your family, and Godspeed, dude. You made things interesting. I hope that the afterlife is nice to you, for what it's worth. Towards the one in Bismillah, Steve. Godspeed. I just wanted to say that and leave that as its own segment in the video, because this is a person who has a long history in the community, and between the loss of him and Meldrum this year, it's like the year we lost Bindernagel. These were bigwigs. If you want to say there are bigwigs in the community, these are people that were like that. And although I didn't always agree with Steve's skeptical take to the extreme that they went, he was somebody who was not ever taken in by the woo or by hoaxes. He was always going to be the one litmus test for any evidence that you brought towards him, because he was very skeptical of things. I don't think he believed in the end in the possibility of Bigfoot, but it's a moot point now. I hope, if it ever happens that the thing is discovered, that you're in a place where you can see it from above and give a nod of approval or whatever. And when that happens, if it happens, it will shake up a lot of perceptions. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say Godspeed to you, and I hope that you are at peace now. I'm going to wrap up this segment, cover some ground, and we'll be back in a moment. Yeah. And just an observation. This is an interesting, subtle marker. It doesn't help that you have this, but subtle marker that a hunter came through here, and it's a lot more subtle than like pink tape. If the hunter's mindset is that he wants this area for himself, and unfortunately, for that person, I am all too aware of this area. And it's not that hard to get to, but... So in other observations today, I am noting that the snow is not that much new snow. It's only about 1.5 inches deep. We're not going to go that way because we went over the state line last week, I think. I don't know that for sure, but it's not a thing I want to do for legal reasons, mainly because I am armed at the moment. And with, just as a brief commentary on the clusterfuck, there's your tape. The clusterfuck, it's also good for finding your way back out if you didn't have snow to backtrack through. The clusterfuck of Second Amendment laws state to state in my overall region. I can carry legally in my own, but no contiguous state is reciprocal of a gun permit. So, which basically means Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey. You can travel with it secured. I think the legal definition is that your gun is locked up in a lockbox in one place. Your ammunition is locked up in a lockbox in another place. In your vehicle, and you can travel and you can pass through legally that way. But and then the ironic thing is, once you get to either Ohio or Vermont or New Hampshire, I'm either reciprocal with one state, or Vermont is constitutional carry, and I think that I say that because they also have a reciprocal out-of-state resident permit that is reciprocal with 37 out of 50 states. The issue being that the ones that are right around in a ring are the ones that are not on that list, which is stupid to me, but beyond my control, so you travel accordingly. As you know, I kind of tangent between different subjects, and hopefully this is educational for you. Ohio, on the other hand, is, I think, if I'm not wrong, and other two-way enthusiasts out there might correct me if I'm mistaken in my assertion, but I think Ohio is second only to Arizona, where I'm my out-of-state resident one with, in terms of the amount of states that are reciprocal with Ohio. I think, and ironically, you would think Texas, but Texas are like Alaska, but I say that because there are certain kinds of handguns that are like ridiculously powerful, and they're only legal, last I knew, in Texas or Alaska or Montana. Places where in 2 of those states you have large grizzly bears that are, especially in Montana, where you can't hunt them legally. There's no hunting season, and therefore they are perfectly fine and well with dining on humans. Which might have something to do with the choice of higher caliber things that are going to drop that. Because what I have on me right now, honestly, if I were to come across an aggressive black bear, I would probably be better suited putting a warning shot in the air to scare it off than taking a shot at range with it, because what you're going to probably do at that point is probably just piss it off. I don't carry anything crazy. What I have on me right now is a .380 ACP caliber semi-automatic, and I was just reading last night, just as a political commentary, and then I'll drop politics. Our lovely state senator, which despises the Second Amendment, despite the fact he lies through his fucking teeth, his self-serving parasitic teeth. Fuck you, Chris Murphy. I can't stand you. And I know that's not the popular opinion right now with everybody who's remotely blue saying fuck Trump and having no other political issues on their hands, minus 1 or 2. I am fighting hard not to be political, but anyway, he had a thing last night, and he's doing the whole guilt trip on guns don't kill people, people kill. Yes, we know that. But guns are horrible, and we should have nothing more than like the basic 22 freaking single shot Derringer. I'm like, no. What I have is well within the parameters of legality under the current definition, and I would actively oppose any attempt to make that any different. And if the blue staters out there disagree with this, well, that's on you. Far as I'm concerned, and this is not a legal thing, this is a philosophical thing. The right to defend yourself is an inherent human right, no matter of what the government you're dealing with legally says. And if that doesn't align with the government, you really ought to question how viable that government really is. And yes, I said that. Because any government that would go so far to say that that is inciting is not a government that values your personal liberty worth a damn. And Canada is not impossible to own a gun, but they do make it a much more of a challenge. The UK, on the other hand, is turning into a, I'm going to stop right there. Their current state of affairs is showing what the dangers are of an opposing extreme to what's happening in the U.S. right now. I'll just say that. People are being arrested for things they're posting on Twitter. And whatever happened to like old school liberalism where they actually cared about freedom of speech? Because these days it's more like cancel culture. If you say something that's remotely disturbing to any one person out there, they're ready to freaking like just run you out of town and literally tar and feather you and give you the letter of marque. And you're just not allowed to exist anymore with any sense of peace because you have horrible ideas in the eyes of like two very, very thin-skinned people. And I do not align with the new definition of that. There's nothing progressive about that. Anyway, I'm going to stop. Let's stick to the matter at hand. And so far, as I said, the woods are a little more crunchy a week later due to melt and refreeze. Not as bad as it could be. It's not like we're in the middle of January yet. I'm going to angle down here on the assumption I can hit the larger, there's like a larger meadow down here. If I can connect to that from both angles of approach, then I've officially kind of put the kibosh on mapping out this entire greater region before you hit Massachusetts, which, again, due to legal reasons, I'm not going to cross. I found where the trail is, and I'm pretty sure I know what trail that is. So that on a day when I'm not otherwise violating their laws, I will try. I'll try another day. We're basically heading down here to see if that leads to where I'm at an angle to the larger meadow, I believe. I approached it once about 3 weeks ago, so it's not thoroughly new territory. There's a second set of tracks out here, not mine. I'm just wondering if I'm following a hunter down. No, actually, these are Bambi tracks. I believe. I'll just verify that. Yeah, most of what I've seen so far today are basically just deer tracks coming through. They're probably eating. If they eat laurel, they're probably eating this stuff. Anyway, I'm going to take a short segment break and deduce if I'm heading in the right area. I'm going to focus on navigation for a minute, and we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, we are seemingly right at the edge of the meadow now. So we're going to advance down and have a look out. See the nature of it. Because over there, I think I approached from further over there before, and it was thicker, so maybe I didn't go in. Or this looks like we have an opening here, at least to peek out and gauge if this is the one I think it is. There's like a skinny little tiny one, which I mistakenly thought this was. And then there's a larger one, but if it's similar to the one behind us, getting in there is a bitch because it's just such a swampy little shithole, for lack of a better vernacular of it. But the hunter's not down here. There is a shitload of Bambi tracks, so they are definitely down here. Let's have a look at this. Maybe this isn't the... or maybe it just doesn't proceed the way I thought it does. But let's have a look-see either way. the terrain definitely changes because it does become more open. Let's, at least we're on the outskirts, I think, of it. And again, because we have snow to backtrack, I'm going to go a little further in, terrain allowing, if this isn't all walking out onto open water, because I do see ice right there. If I do break through, I will stop. But that would also answer, I'm going to actually go around that way because it might open up more directly there. I don't know that I trust this. Is it? No, because I see water there. I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to fall through and walk out with frozen swamp foot. I'm going to go around and over there because that looks like it might open up better. The key is to, the purpose of the exercise is to kind of map this out, not put your big toe in to test the water, which I'm sure is plenty cold. So we'll do that if that's... Got water right there too. Yeah, because the other the other water hole is literally that. There's like tall grass, but it's you take 3 steps and you're up into your knees in mucky swamp water, which is not much fun. So we're going to do a parallel and see if it opens. I think it opens up over here. Mine is pushing past a few pine trees over here. And I'm just questioning if this is a proper, sorry, it's Laurel, a proper meadow, or if it's just more of like a thinning of the trees. But we'll parallel it for a few. Just mindful of the state line. I don't think this thing crosses over the state line though. Anyway, I think this was the target of today's mission, and let's just see if it is actually what it may just not be of a nature. It's hard to tell from a aerial photo how this is per se, but let's, yeah, I'm surprised the hunter didn't come down here. There's a decent amount of Bambi tracks down here. It's not like your quarry's not down here, dude. But I just don't trust the water line part of the equation here. I'll go over here where I saw it open up. And then it could just be that it just thins out enough to look like a meadow. But again, I see the water line. It's basically a fucking swamp, I think. A very tree-heavy swamp. Unless it opens up more, so we'll continue our parallel. And since the camera's out, come on along. Let's see what we run into. Starting to notice a little dusting level of snow. Not that that's going to obscure tracks getting back. I already know the general direction, but I mean, if we go back that way, we'll come up within eyesight of the other wetland and not be thoroughly. It is starting to snow though, ever so lightly. So on the one hand, I do think this is the target area I was going to look for. I just don't think it's configured the way I half expected. If it is like a big swamp, something to note, but might also be why you don't see hunter tracks going out into the middle of it, stalking Bambi in the middle of it. Wet feet in the middle of December, not fun. But again, we'll go a little bit further just to see if this opens up anymore, if it just is. I mean, this is definitely it because it is a lot open. It's like it's a definite change in the nature of the terrain, but it's not. That is a gnarly ass tree right there. That looks obscene. I'll leave it to your imagination to say why. I'm not going to pollute my vidya with that. But it is one thing that's a lot more unique to Connecticut woods than other areas I'm in. I was thinking about that the other day. The nature of woodland systems you see from the Adirondacks to the White Mountains to the Green Mountains and Connecticut. The Green Mountains are in many places very similar looking to the Pacific Northwest. The Adirondacks just look different because they're part of the Appalachian mountain range. The White Mountains have a unique appearance. You'd have to go there to really tell the difference. And then you have Connecticut where you have these gnarled old trees, and it's kind of just like you mix in with other things out here in wildlife. It's kind of hard to ignore, although I'm not really that into it, the fact that Connecticut is one of the 3 most prolifically haunted states in the country. And to that end, I have had experiences out here that I don't really push past the point to understand. But ghostly activity is as good an explanation as any other. This is definitely the area. It just doesn't configure itself the way I thought it might. In drier weather, you'd have to come down here and try to picture out a dry approach into that. But since I have kind of achieved this, I'm going to parallel it just a little bit further to where that broken tree is and maybe a little beyond. The final act of this segment of the mapping project is basically going to be trying to find this from the opposing area. And it does seem like it might be getting a little denser. So let's angle through here, get to that tree, and then see if my deduction is true. And if we see that trail, we will turn back, as I don't want to violate anything. It looks like it gets wetter too. Let's go that far and then we'll confirm that and then decide my next move. On the map, the area looked like a contiguous, I'll say tablet shape, not really rectangular, but sort of kind of somewhere between that and a peanut-shaped oval. So it's not. But let's... Is this that trail? Because there's definitely vehicle tracks here. Let's ascertain if I'm on the trail or not. It is a trail, so I'm going to stop here. Okay. All right, so we're going to start. I wasn't sure if the area in question abuts the state line. It would seem that it does, so we're not going to violate the state line. And the reason I'm using the trail as a border is, if it is the trail I think it is, on the starting point of the other side, it is literally directly in line with a marble fixture that does denote where the state line physically actually is. So on this side of it, we are on the Connecticut side and we're good. So we're going to stay that way. And we are going to get some wintry shots of this and take a segment break to do that. We'll be back shortly. We are back because I thought I saw motion and line of sight up in this area. So should we have a close encounter with something, we will maybe get a glimpse of what it was. This far out, I don't assume anything. With the minimality, that word, minimality? Minimal chance of it being a black bear, only because they're sleeping this time of year. And yes, I am positive this is the area I was gunning for today. But as you can see, it is a little bit thicker. It's probably swampy. I just don't want to... I'm going to hold out and attempt to determine on the other side where you approach it from, and see if it's more open on that side. This side looks swampy like the other one that's up the hill, which is... Hold on one second while I scan the perimeter for anybody out here. Probably more than likely a deer than anything else, but you never know. And I am basically attempting just to stay with my tracks for the backtracking. Keep things honest. And all that. But this is where we initially poked our head in. And interestingly enough, it looks like it's the same more over that way. And which is actually where I think we made our initial approach. But it is... There's another gnarly tree that stands out a little bit. We definitely know how to get here. Let's just... The final mapping run of this location is going to be when we get to the other side of it. And from there, we'll determine... Sorry, I had a hitchhiker. Where we stand with everything. But this is where I'm going to follow my tracks back. Verifying that these are my tracks. Bear with me one second where I just double check. Yep, those are not people tracks. Just make sure this is where I thought I was. I'm not going off on an odd angle. Nope. It would seem otherwise. So I'm going to take another segment break only because I want to verify that I am where I think I am. And we'll get where we're going from there. We'll be back. Okay, so the fun of backtracking is there's a couple different track sets down here. And I just came to the harsh revelation that moose tracks, after a couple of melts and refreezes, are annoyingly similar to human. And we were momentarily tracking Bullwinkle, which has a little history with me because that's how I got lost the last time. And since I have dinner plans tonight, that's not on the agenda. I'm doing my best to keep things directionally honest, but there's also the other hunters tracks in here because we are, I think my best bet really is to work with the direction of the, we're near one of the stone walls I think too, the direction of the tree line relative to the other wetland, because that leads back down the hill. And I think if I can figure out where the fuck I relatively am, that goes that way. All right, so I'm going to walk over here because I want to verify this is what I think it is. Move. And it is. Okay. Watch my footing here. But that is the wetland. So I've lost the tracks, but 99% certain this angle brings me to the stream, and that is just as good as I'm just going to follow this till it aligns with the stream then. The plus is it's not windy today, and this may be my tracks. They're going in the right direction anyway, for the most part. Yeah. I think this is the double set where me and Hunter Boy were sharing the path. I'll make some comments when my superstitions kind of die down. but we seem like we're heading in the right direction. All right, that just happened. The camera's acting up. It won't be catastrophic if it dies on me at this point, but we have me finding what I was looking for and me most of the way home. But I would like to see the stream just for total confirmation, because once we're there, I'll know how to get. I don't need navigational assistance, but I mean, the tracks are going where I would expect them to, though. That's a plus. I just don't know how far in this direction I need to go yet. But I do see what I expect to see navigationally too. The pond is over there. And is this interesting? It's going to be interesting if we pop out somewhere thoroughly other than where I thought. But let's... This is looking familiar, though. Ish. But it opens up over there. Indicative of the pond over there, so... What you're experiencing in real time, other than my hacking up along, is because this area can change visually in a week's time. You're not above second guessing your gut feeling. Or your gut feeling isn't always correct. So in this case, I'm going towards where the tracks are taking me because it's lining up directionally what I would expect. Whereas that over there is probably the little corral thing for the hunters that used to use that a few years back. But I can also see the stream, so I know where I am. I just... At this point, you start second guessing yourself. It's to your detriment. So I'm going to take a segment break. Yes, once again. Get on the other side of the stream and verify my bearings, and then we'll be back. A little bit of navigational confusion this time in real time. So we'll be back in a bit. We're on the... So to make the point, we are on this side of the stream now. And I am where I was. So what I didn't want to say to jinx anything, which is straight up silly superstition, but I have managed to get lost in areas of this nature in the past. And not for long periods of time, and I've already told that story, but it made me stop and think, because I literally realized that briefly I was following Bullwinkle's tracks, and given the, just to make the point with the consistency of the snow, it's powdery once you get underneath the crust, which does not make for definitive tracks. And I started to question my path of following, mainly because the stride between the tracks was like, this would be kind of hard for you to do. So I look at the shape, and they're rounder and not like the heel portion of a human foot wasn't really there. And I kind of just had to come to the conclusion, I don't think these are human. I think these are Bullwinkle. And you're not going where you think you're going. As a result, not that you're going to get horribly lost, because the reality of this area is a couple hundred yards that way is the main way in. If you bumblefuck way the hell over there, like a mile from here, there is the trail that you're on the wrong side of the state line. And if you cross the stream and bumblefuck all the way through over there, you'll end up at a big wetland. If you go around that and pop out the other side, you're on the trail system that's about a mile or two. I've never actually measured it. It's at least a mile, though, that way. And so getting lost on the level of them sending out the helicopters, unless you really got injured somehow, not likely, but you're going to get turned around. And as I previously stated, I have dinner plans tonight. And I don't want to be late and deal with the bullshit of that, so my getting back was a combination of gut feeling and trusting my eyes and I guess my instincts. Because again, suddenly my tracks started looking a lot more like Bullwinkle's. And I'm like, I followed them a little bit and looked at them and finally kind of came to the conclusion, I don't think you're wrong here. I think you're following a moose. Which, seeing one would be cool, but you're also not going the right way. You're heading into south. You're heading northish into Massachusetts. And that's not the desired outcome. Once you get into this neck of the woods, ponds over there, you know where you're going. Which is why I got over going with tracks. I'm just kind of going in the angle I feel like, but also kind of just seeing what's here on the way back. I might have stayed later to explore other novelties, but we also have snow coming in later in the day, and there's a couple of bits of the drive on the way out that are tricky in snow of any significance. So what I was saying before, just to illustrate the point about the uniqueness of Connecticut woods, gnarly ass trees like this are kind of a unique thing of this greater neighborhood. Like that too, and maybe southern Massachusetts as well. But once you get into Vermont, it starts looking more pine foresty, northwest. Yeah, great, like the Pacific Northwest, there's a similarity, which is probably why I like the area so much. We did have an interesting moment where peripheral vision picked up on motion. So I could have been in the neighborhood with something. Another gnarly ass tree. But doesn't look like we're sleeping out here. Like I said, the last time it happened, it was kind of dicey, more because you had a light rain and I made a couple of very stupid mistakes that led to the threat of hypothermia setting in. Totally my fault, humbling. You kick yourself in the ass, but you learn from it. Today we fared a little better because I didn't trust my eyes after a point, because I was kind of just doing it robotically, and then again realized these aren't human tracks. And they may lead you back to where you want to go, or you're following a damn moose into the swamp. Not quite as helpful. But anywho, I think, barring running into one of them out here, this is as good a place as any to wrap this up. Quiet out here today. mission more or less accomplished. Consistency of the target area is not what I was expecting completely. And future plans will be when it's drier or like we don't have snow, I can get a better idea of the weeds and water ratio if there is solid ground. Because I've made a couple of attempts to enter the big one over there, and it's a swampy little son of a gun. You get about 10 feet, you hit a swampy area, and you have to re-angle or turn back. And there's nothing interesting in the middle if it's all swamp, or at least for my purposes. So at this point, we are going to say that we're going to call this one minus first contact with the forest residents. Like, subscribe, leave commentary as you feel so moved, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for watching, and until then, bye.